Maya Chen sat in the back corner of the music room every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. She always picked the same seat, right by the window where she could see the parking lot and the old oak tree that changed colors with each season. The other students never paid much attention to her. She was just Maya, the quiet girl who never raised her hand and never caused trouble. Her violin case rested on the floor next to her desk. It was an old brown case with scratches on the sides and a broken latch that she had to hold closed with a rubber band. The case looked tired, like it had traveled many miles and seen many years. Maya kept her hand on it during class, as if it might run away if she let go. While her classmates talked and laughed before class started, Maya traced invisible notes on her desk with her finger. She heard melodies in her head all the time. Sometimes they were songs from the radio. Sometimes they were pieces she made up herself. Her fingers moved like she was playing a real violin, but no sound came out. Only Maya could hear the music. Mr. Rodriguez taught the music class. He was a nice man with gray hair and kind eyes who tried his best to help students learn. But most of the kids in the class were only there because they needed an art credit to graduate. They did not really want to learn music. They talked during lessons and forgot to bring their instruments. Mr. Rodriguez looked tired most days. Maya never forgot her violin. She carried it everywhere, even when she did not have music class. It went with her to lunch, to study hall, and on the bus ride home. The other students thought this was strange, but Maya did not care. The violin was her best friend. At home, Maya lived with her mother in a small apartment on the third floor of an old building. The apartment had 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen that was barely big enough for 2 people. The walls were thin, and they could hear their neighbors watching TV and talking on the phone, but Maya liked their little home. It was clean and warm, and it smelled like the jasmine tea her mother drank every morning. Maya's mother worked as a nurse at the city hospital. She worked the night shift, which meant she left for work at 6 p.m. and came home at 7 a.m. This schedule was hard, but it paid better than the day shift. Maya's mother needed that extra money to pay for rent, food, and all the other things they needed. When her mother left for work each evening, Maya had the apartment to herself. This was when the magic happened. She would take her violin out of its case and play for hours. The music filled every corner of their small home. She played softly at first, worried about bothering the neighbors. But as the night went on and the building got quieter, she played louder and with more feeling. Maya had been playing violin since she was very young. Her grandmother had taught her. Grandmother Chun was a special woman with gentle hands and a voice like music when she spoke. She had lived with Maya and her mother until Maya was 13. Then one winter day, grandmother got sick and never got better. Maya still missed her every single day. Before grandmother died, she had given Maya her violin. It was old and beautiful, made of wood that glowed like honey in the light. The violin had come from China, just like grandmother had many years ago. It was the most valuable thing their family owned, but Maya's mother never thought about selling it. She knew how much it meant to Maya, and she knew how much Maya's music meant to both of them. At school, nobody knew that Maya could really play. In music class, she pretended to be like everyone else. When Mr. Rodriguez asked students to play simple songs, Maya played them simply. She made mistakes on purpose. She played quietly and carefully, never showing what she could really do. Maya was afraid that if people knew how well she could play, they would ask questions she did not want to answer. The truth was that Maya could play music that would surprise everyone. At home alone, she played pieces that were very hard and very beautiful. She played songs from movies, classical music from famous composers, and traditional Chinese songs that her grandmother had taught her. But at school, she kept this secret locked inside. Spring was coming, and Mr. Rodriguez was planning the yearly spring concert. Every year, the music students performed for their families and friends in the school auditorium. It was supposed to be a celebration of what they had learned, but most years it was just okay. The students played simple songs, some better than others, and everyone clapped politely. This year, Mr. Rodriguez was having trouble planning the concert. Many of his students could barely play their instruments well enough to perform in front. of people. He needed more students who could play solo pieces to make the concert interesting. He looked around his classroom, trying to figure out who might be able to help. That was when he noticed Maya's violin case. He had seen her carry it every day, but he had never really paid attention to how she played in class. She was so quiet and careful that she never stood out. But she always had her violin, and she always seemed to know what was going on during lessons. Even when she did not say anything after class one day, Mr. Rodriguez walked over to Maya's desk. She was packing up her violin and getting ready to leave for her next class. Her heart started beating fast when she saw him coming. Maya did not like it when teachers paid special attention to her. "Maya," Mr. Rodriguez said with a smile, "I've been thinking about our spring concert. I notice you always have your violin with you. Would you be interested in playing a solo piece?" Maya's face turned red. She looked down at her violin case and did not know what to say. Part of her wanted to say yes. She loved music more than anything, and she had always wondered what it would be like to play for other people. But another part of her was scared. What if she was not as good as she thought? What if people laughed at her? What if she made a mistake? "It would be something simple," Mr. Rodriguez continued. "Maybe a folk song or a hymn. Nothing too difficult. I think it would be good for the concert to have more variety." Maya looked up at her teacher. He seemed sincere and kind. She thought about her grandmother, who had always told her that music was meant to be shared, not hidden away. She thought about all those nights at home when she played her heart out to an empty apartment. "Okay," Maya said quietly. "I can try," Mr. Rodriguez smiled bigger. "Great. Why don't you think about what you might like to play, and we can talk about it next class?" Maya nodded and hurried out of the room. Her heart was still beating fast, but now it was beating with excitement as well as fear. She had just agreed to perform in front of people for the first time in her life. As she walked to her next class, she wondered if she had just made the best decision of her life or the biggest mistake. That night, Maya sat on her bed with her violin in her lap. Her mother had left for work an hour ago, and the apartment was quiet except for the sound of cars passing by outside. She ran her fingers along the smooth wood of the instrument, thinking about what Mr. Rodriguez had asked her to do. Maya had a secret that no one at school knew. She was not just someone who could play a little bit. She had been playing violin seriously since she was 4 years old. Her grandmother had been her teacher, and Grandmother Chun was not an ordinary person who just happened to know some music. Grandmother Chun had been a real violinist back in China. She had played in concert halls and performed for hundreds of people. When she was young, she had studied at the best music school in Shanghai. She could play the most difficult pieces ever written, pieces that made other musicians shake their heads in amazement, but then everything changed. When Maya's grandmother was 25 years old, there was a time in China called the Cultural Revolution. During this time, the government decided that certain kinds of music were bad. Classical music from other countries was considered dangerous. Musicians like Grandmother Chun were told they could not perform anymore. Grandmother Chun had to leave everything behind. She left her career, her friends, and her beautiful life in Shanghai. She came to America with nothing except her violin and her memories. In America, she worked in restaurants and factories. She cleaned office buildings at night and took care of other people's children during the day. But she never stopped playing her violin. When Maya's mother was born, Grandmother Chun taught her music too. But Maya's mother was more interested in helping people than in playing instruments. She became a nurse and spent her time taking care of sick people. Maya's mother could play a little bit, but she did not have the passion for music that ran in her family like a river. Then Maya was born and everything changed again. From the time Maya was tiny, she loved music. When she was a baby, she would stop crying as soon as Grandmother Chun started playing violin. When she was 2 years old, she would dance and clap whenever she heard music. When she was 3, she begged her grandmother to teach her how to play. Grandmother Chun was careful at first. She did not want to push Maya into music if it was not what Maya really wanted. But it became clear very quickly that Maya had inherited the musical gift that ran in their family. Maya's small fingers learned to hold the violin bow correctly right away. Her ear was so good that she could tell when a note was even slightly out of tune. Most importantly, when Maya played, she did not just make sounds. She made music that had feeling and life in it. For 9 years, Grandmother Chen taught Maya everything she knew. They practiced together every day after school. Grandmother Chen showed Maya how to hold her body correctly, how to move her fingers precisely, and how to make the violin sing like a human voice. But more than technique, she taught Maya that music was a language that could say things that words could not say. Music is not just notes on a page, Grandmother Chen would tell Maya. Music is the sound of the human heart. When you play, you must put your heart into every note. Maya learned pieces that most adult musicians found difficult. She learned Bach, who wrote music like mathematics but beautiful. She learned Mozart, who wrote music that sparkled like diamonds. She learned Vivaldi, who wrote music that sounded like different seasons of the year. She also learned traditional Chinese music that told stories of mountains and rivers and love and loss, but Maya also learned to be careful about when she played these difficult pieces. Their apartment building was full of people who worked hard all day and needed to sleep at night. Maya learned to practice quietly or to use a special mute that made her violin whisper instead of sing. At school, Maya had learned to hide her abilities for a different reason. When she was younger, she had tried to make friends by showing them what she could do. But the other children did not understand. They thought she was showing off. They thought she was trying to make them feel bad about themselves. Some of them even made fun of her for being different. Maya learned that it was easier to fit in if she pretended to be ordinary. So, at school, she played simple songs simply. She made the same mistakes that other students made. She never volunteered to demonstrate anything for the class. She became invisible. And invisible felt safer than being different. When Grandmother Chen died 2 years ago, Maya thought her heart would break into a million pieces. Grandmother Chen had been her teacher, her friend, and her biggest supporter. She was the only person who really understood Maya's music. Without her, Maya felt lost and alone. For months after Grandmother Chen died, Maya could barely bring herself to play. Every time she picked up her violin, she missed her grandmother so much that she could not continue. The apartment felt too quiet without the sound of Grandmother Chen's voice encouraging her and correcting her mistakes, but slowly, Maya began to play again. She realized that when she played the pieces Grandmother Chen had taught her, she could still feel her grandmother's presence. The music was like a bridge that connected Maya to all the love and wisdom her grandmother had shared with her. Now, as Maya sat on her bed thinking about the spring concert, she felt nervous and excited at the same time. Mr. Rodriguez had asked her to play something simple, and she had already decided what she would play. She would play Simple Gifts, which was an old American folk song that was pretty and easy to understand. Maya had learned Simple Gifts from a music book, and she could play it exactly the way it was written. It was a good choice because it was not too difficult, but it was also not too easy. It would show that she could play competently without revealing how much she really knew. But as Maya thought about the song, she began to hear it differently in her mind. She began to imagine how she could play it with more expression, how she could add small decorations to make it more interesting, how she could make it tell a story. These were things Grandmother Chen had taught her to do, to take a simple melody and make it come alive. Maya picked up her violin and began to play Simple Gifts the way it was written. It sounded nice, but it sounded ordinary. Then she played it again, this time adding some of the techniques Grandmother Chen had taught her. She made some notes longer and some notes shorter. She made some notes louder and some notes softer. She added tiny ornaments that made the melody sparkle. The song was still Simple Gifts, but now it sounded like Maya's version of Simple Gifts. It sounded like it had her personality and her feelings in it. Maya smiled as she played. This was what Grandmother Chen had meant when she said that music should have heart in it. As the days passed, Maya practiced Simple Gifts both ways. In music class, she played it simply and carefully, the way Mr. Rodriguez expected. But at home, she played it with all the beauty and emotion she could put into it. She was not sure which version she would play at the concert, but she was getting excited about the possibility of sharing her music with other people for the first time. Maya did not know that her decision about how to play at the concert would change everything. She did not know that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we stop hiding who we really are and start showing the world what we can really do. The week before the spring concert, Maya practiced Simple Gifts every day. She had it memorized perfectly now, both the simple version and the more beautiful version she played at home. Every time she played it in music class, Mr. Rodriguez smiled and nodded. He seemed happy with her choice and pleased that she was participating in the concert. Maya's mother knew about the concert too. Maya had told her about it one morning when her mother came home from her night shift at the hospital. Her mother's face had lit up with joy and surprise. "You are going to play for people?" her mother had asked. Sitting down at their small kitchen table with her cup of jasmine tea, Maya nodded, suddenly feeling shy about it. "Just one song, nothing big." Her mother reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. "Grandmother Chung would be so proud," she said softly. "She always wanted you to share your music with the world." Maya felt tears come to her eyes when her mother said this. She missed her grandmother so much, especially now when she was about to do something as important as performing in public for the first time. "Will you come to the concert?" Maya asked. Her mother looked sad for a moment. "I will try, sweetheart. I have to work that night, but maybe I can get someone to cover for me for a little while." Maya understood. Her mother's job was very important, and it was hard for her to take time off. But Maya hoped that somehow her mother might be able to hear her play. The day of the concert arrived faster than Maya expected. It was a Thursday evening in May, and the weather was warm and pleasant. Maya had been nervous all day at school, but it was a good kind of nervous. She felt excited and scared at the same time. Maya arrived at school an hour before the concert was supposed to start. She wanted to have time to tune her violin and get used to being on the stage. The auditorium was still empty except for Mr. Rodriguez and a few other teachers who were setting up chairs and adjusting the lights. "Maya!" Mr. Rodriguez called out when he saw her. "I'm so glad you're here early. We have a bit of a problem, and I was hoping you might be able to help." Maya's heart sank. She was worried that Mr. Rodriguez was going to ask her not to play after all, or that something had gone wrong with the concert plans. "What kind of problem?" she asked quietly. Mr. Rodriguez looked stressed and tired. "Our piano player got sick today. Jenny Martinez was supposed to come play piano for 5 of the pieces tonight, but she called this afternoon with a bad fever. Now I don't know what to do about the students who were counting on piano accompaniment." Maya felt relieved that the problem was not about her, but she also felt bad for the other students who would be disappointed. "Can you find another piano player?" she asked. "I've called everyone I can think of," Mr. Rodriguez said, shaking his head. "It's too late notice for most people. I'm going to have to cancel some of the performances, and I hate to do that too." The kids. Maya thought about this problem as she walked to the small room behind the stage where the performers were supposed to wait. She felt lucky that her piece did not need a piano player. Simple Gifts sounded beautiful on violin by itself. As the evening went on, more students arrived with their families. Maya could hear people talking and laughing in the auditorium as they found their seats. She peeked out from behind the curtain and saw that the auditorium was quite full. There were parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, and friends all waiting to hear the concert. Maya looked for her mother in the audience, but she did not see her. She felt a little sad about this, but she understood. Her mother had to work to pay their bills, and Maya knew that her mother would be there if she possibly could. The concert began at 7 o'clock. Mr. Rodriguez walked onto the stage and welcomed everyone. He explained that some of the performances had to be changed because their piano player was sick, but he promised that it would still be a wonderful evening of music. Maya was scheduled to perform near the middle of the concert. She listened from backstage as the other students played their pieces. Some played well, and some made mistakes, but everyone clapped for each performance. Maya could tell that the audience was being very supportive and kind. As her turn got closer, Maya felt her heart beating faster. She took her violin out of its case and checked to make sure it was still in tune. She ran through simple gifts in her mind, imagining herself playing it perfectly. Then something unexpected happened. Maya heard a commotion in the auditorium. People were talking louder than usual, and she could hear Mr. Rodriguez's voice over the microphone, but she could not understand what he was saying. Maya peeked out from behind the curtain again. Mr. Rodriguez was on the stage, and he looked upset. Some of the students who had been waiting to perform were walking back to sit with their families. Maya realized that more performances were being canceled because of the missing piano player. Maya watched as disappointed students returned to the audience. She saw tears on some of their faces. They had been practicing for weeks, and now they would not get to perform. The concert was falling apart, and everyone could feel it. Maya looked down at her violin. She was one of the lucky ones whose performance did not need a piano, but seeing the other students so disappointed made her feel terrible. She wished there was something she could do to help make the concert better. That was when Maya had an idea. It was a crazy idea, and it scared her more than anything she had ever considered doing. As she watched more disappointed students and their families, she knew she had to try. Maya had learned many pieces over the years that did not need piano accompaniment. She knew pieces that were beautiful and moving and that people would enjoy hearing. She knew pieces that could help save this concert and make people happy instead of disappointed, but playing those pieces would mean showing everyone what she could really do. It would mean giving up her secret and letting people see the real Maya instead of the quiet, invisible Maya. She pretended to be at school. Maya closed her eyes and thought about her grandmother. She remembered Grandmother Chun saying that music was meant to be shared, not hidden away. She remembered her grandmother telling her that music was the sound of the human heart, and that when she played, she should put her heart into every note. When Maya opened her eyes, she had made her decision. She was not just going to play simple gifts the simple way. She was going to play it the beautiful way, the way that showed who she really was. And if the audience liked it, maybe she would play more. Maya took a deep breath and waited for Mr. Rodriguez to call her name. Her hands were shaking a little, but her heart was full of determination. She was about to stop hiding and start sharing the gift that her grandmother had given her. In just a few minutes, Maya Chen would walk onto that stage as one person and walk off as someone completely different. She did not know it yet, but she was about to have the most important performance of her life. Our next performer is Maya Chen, Mr. Rodriguez announced into the microphone. Maya will play Simple Gifts on the violin. Maya walked onto the stage with her grandmother's violin in her left hand and her bow in her right hand. The stage lights were bright and warm, and she could see the faces of people in the audience looking up at her. Some people were still talking quietly to each other, and some were checking their phones. Maya could tell that many people were not paying close attention. They expected this to be just another simple student performance. Maya stood in the center of the stage and looked out at the audience. For a moment, she felt very small and very alone. The auditorium seemed huge, and there were so many people watching her. She almost decided to just play Simple Gifts the easy way and get off the stage as quickly as possible, but then Maya saw something that changed everything. In the back of the auditorium, she saw her mother. Her mother was standing by the door, still wearing her white nurse uniform from the hospital. She must have found someone to cover for her at work, even if it was just for a little while. When their eyes met, Maya's mother smiled and put her hand over her heart. Maya felt a warm feeling spread through her whole body. Her grandmother was not there to hear her play, but her mother was. And Maya knew that somehow her grandmother was there too. In the music that lived inside Maya's heart, Maya lifted her violin to her shoulder and placed her chin on the chin rest. She positioned her bow on the strings and closed her eyes. For just a moment, she let herself remember all those evenings when she and her grandmother had made music together in their small apartment. She remembered her grandmother's voice saying, "Put your heart into every note." Maya began to play Simple Gifts. The first few notes were gentle and sweet, just like the song was supposed to sound. The audience recognized the familiar melody. And some people began to relax and listen more carefully, but then something magical started to happen. Maya began to add the small ornaments and decorations that made the melody more beautiful. She made some notes dance and some notes sing. She added tiny pauses that made the music breathe like a living thing. The audience began to notice that this was not just an ordinary performance. People stopped talking to each other. They put their phones away. They started to lean forward in their seats, paying attention to what Maya was doing with the simple folk song. Maya could feel the change in the room, and it gave her confidence to do more. She began to play with more expression, making the violin sound almost like a human voice telling a story. The melody rose and fell like someone speaking, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes hopeful. As she played, Maya began to think about all the things this song could mean. Simple Gifts was about being grateful for the good things in life, even when those things were small and ordinary. Maya thought about her small apartment, her mother's hard work, her grandmother's love, and her own music. These were her simple gifts, and they were also the most important things in her world. The song was supposed to end after about 3 minutes, but Maya was not ready to stop. She could feel that the audience was with her, listening to every note. She played. She could feel that something special was happening, something that might never happen again. So Maya did something she had never planned to do. Instead of ending Simple Gifts, she began to weave it together with other pieces she knew. She started with a batch melody that fit perfectly with the folk song, making it sound more elegant and sophisticated. The audience gasped softly as they realized that this quiet student could play classical music that was much more difficult than anything they had expected, but Maya was just getting started. She began to add pieces of other songs that somehow connected to Simple Gifts. She played part of a Chinese folk song that her grandmother had taught her, a beautiful melody that sounded like wind blowing through bamboo trees. She played fragments of movie themes that the younger people in the audience recognized, making them sit up straighter and pay even more attention. Maya played with her eyes closed, completely lost in the music. She was not thinking about the audience anymore, or about being nervous, or about being the quiet girl who always sat in the back of the class. She was just thinking about the music and about sharing all the beautiful sounds that lived inside. Her heart. The violin seemed to become part of Maya's body. Her fingers moved across the strings like they were dancing. Her bow moved back and forth with perfect control, sometimes making the violin whisper and sometimes making it soar. She played high notes that sounded like birds singing and low notes that sounded like the earth itself humming. As Maya played, she began to tell the story of her family through music. She played about her grandmother leaving China and coming to America with nothing but her violin and her dreams. She played about her mother working hard every night to take care of their family. She played about herself growing up between two cultures, learning to be American but never forgetting her Chinese heritage. The audience was completely silent now, completely focused on Maya and her violin. Some people had tears in their eyes. Some people were holding hands with the person sitting next to them. Everyone in the auditorium could feel that they were experiencing something very special, something they would remember for the rest of their lives. Maya played for almost 15 minutes, though nobody was counting the time. Her performance included simple gifts, but it had become so much more than that. It had become a journey through different kinds of music, different emotions, and different parts of Maya's life and heritage. Finally, Maya began to bring all the different melodies back together. She wove them into a final version of Simple Gifts that included everything she had played, but also returned to the simple, beautiful folk song that had started it all. She played the last few notes very softly, very gently, like a lullaby that was putting the audience to sleep in the most peaceful way. When Maya drew her bow across the strings for the very last time, the notes seemed to hang in the air forever. Then there was complete silence in the auditorium. Maya opened her eyes and looked out at the audience, suddenly remembering where she was and what she had just done, for a moment that seemed to last forever. Nobody moved and nobody made a sound. Maya began to worry that she had made a terrible mistake, that she had played too long or too loudly or too differently from what people expected. But then, like a dam bursting, the entire auditorium exploded with sound. Everyone was standing up and clapping as hard as they could. People were shouting bravo and amazing. Some people were crying and clapping at the same time. The applause went on, louder than any applause Maya had ever heard in her life. Maya stood on the stage, holding her violin and bow, hardly believing what was happening. She had never imagined that sharing her music could create such a powerful reaction. She looked out at all the standing, clapping people and felt like she was in a dream. The applause seemed to go on forever. Maya stood on the stage, still holding her violin and bow, looking out at hundreds of people who were all standing and clapping for her. She had never seen anything like it. People were wiping tears from their eyes while they clapped. Some people were holding their hands up high as they applauded. A few people were even whistling and cheering. Maya did not know what to do. She had never been taught how to handle this kind of reaction. She gave a small bow, the way she had seen musicians do on television, and started to walk toward the side of the stage. But the applause got even louder, and people started calling out for her to come back. More! More! Some people shouted. That was incredible. Others called out. Maya stopped and turned back toward the audience. She saw her mother near the back of the auditorium, and her mother was crying and clapping harder than anyone else. Her mother's face was shining with pride and joy and amazement. Maya had never seen her mother look so happy. Mr. Rodriguez appeared beside Maya on the stage. He had a huge smile on his face, and his eyes were wide with surprise. He put his hand on Maya's shoulder and leaned toward the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, and his voice was shaking a little bit, "I think we have just witnessed something very special. Maya-chan, everyone?" The applause started all over again, just as loud as before. Maya felt dizzy with all the attention and excitement. She bowed again and then walked off the stage, her legs feeling wobbly underneath her. Backstage, the other students who were waiting to perform surrounded Maya immediately. They were all talking at once, asking her questions and telling her how amazing she was. "Maya, I had no idea you could play like that," said Jennifer, a girl from her music class. "Where? Did you learn to do that?" asked Marcus, who played trumpet. "That was like listening to a real professional musician," said Sarah. Shaking her head in disbelief, Maya did not know how to answer all their questions. She felt overwhelmed by all the attention. For so long, she had been invisible at school, and now suddenly everyone wanted to talk to her. It was exciting, but it was also a little bit scary. The rest of the concert continued, but Maya could tell that everyone was still thinking about her performance. The other students played their pieces well, but the energy in the auditorium had changed. Maya had set a standard that made everything else seem different. When the concert was over, Maya packed up her violin and started to leave the backstage area, but as soon as she walked into the main part of the school, she was surrounded by people again. Parents came up to her to tell her how much they had enjoyed her playing. Other students wanted to take pictures with her. Teachers she had never talked to before came over to congratulate her. "Maya!" A voice called out over all the other voices. Maya turned and saw a woman with short gray hair and kind eyes pushing through the crowd toward her. The woman was wearing a dark blue dress and carrying a small purse. "My name is Dr. Sarah Williams," the woman said when she reached Maya. "I teach violin at the university here in town. I came tonight to hear my neighbor's daughter play, but I have to tell you that your performance was extraordinary." Maya did not know what to say. A real violin teacher from the university was talking to her, and she was saying that Maya's playing was extraordinary. "I would very much like to talk to you and your parents about your musical education," Dr. Williams continued. "Have you ever thought about studying violin more seriously?" Before Maya could answer, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around and saw her mother standing there, still in her white nurse uniform, but now with the biggest smile Maya had ever seen on her face. "This is my mother," Maya said to Dr. Williams. Maya's mother and Dr. Williams shook hands, and Dr. Williams repeated what she had said about Maya's playing being extraordinary. She explained that she taught at the university and that she worked with very talented young musicians. "Your daughter has a remarkable gift," Dr. Williams told Maya's mother. "With the right training and opportunities, she could have a real future." In music, Maya's mother looked at Maya with tears in her eyes. "We always knew she was special," she said softly. "Her grandmother taught her when she was small, but we never imagined." Dr. Williams gave Maya's mother her business card and asked if they could meet sometime soon to talk about Maya's musical education. She mentioned things like scholarships and special programs for gifted young musicians. Maya listened to this conversation feeling like she was in a dream. Over the next few days, Maya's life changed in ways she never could have imagined. A video that someone had recorded of her performance on their phone was posted on social media. Within hours, it had been shared hundreds of times. People were calling Maya a hidden genius and a musical miracle. The local newspaper wanted to interview Maya and write a story about her. The radio station invited her to come play on their morning show. Other schools called to ask if Maya would come perform for their students, but the most important change was the one that happened inside Maya herself. For the first time in her life, she did not have to hide who she really was. She did not have to pretend to be ordinary or invisible. She could be Maya the musician, Maya the artist, Maya the girl who had inherited her grandmother's gift and was finally ready to share it with the world. Dr. Williams kept her promise to meet with Maya and her mother. She offered Maya a full scholarship to study in the university's special program for young musicians. She also introduced Maya to other violin teachers and to other young people who were serious about music. Maya's mother was able to reduce her work hours because of the scholarship money and because Maya started getting paid for some of her performances. For the first time in years, Maya's mother could be home more often, and they could spend more time together as a family. 6 months later, Maya performed as a featured soloist with the city's symphony orchestra. She played a concerto by Mozart, one of the pieces her grandmother had taught her years ago. As she played, Maya thought about how proud her grandmother would be to see her sharing her music with so many people, but Maya never forgot the night of the spring concert when everything changed. She never forgot how it felt to walk onto that stage as the quiet, invisible girl and to walk off as someone completely different. She learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is to stop hiding your gifts and start sharing them with the world. Maya still lived in the same small apartment with her mother. She still carried her violin case with her everywhere she went, but now she carried it with pride instead of secrecy. Now she was no longer afraid to let people see who she really was. Sometimes Maya would play Simple Gifts again, and every time she played it, she remembered that night when she was told to play a simple tune and instead decided to take over the entire stage. She remembered that music is not just notes on a page, but the sound of the human heart, and that when you put your heart into every note, magical things can happen. Maya learned that being different is not something to hide from, but something to celebrate. She learned that sometimes the most beautiful performances come not from playing it safe, but from playing what is true. And most importantly, she learned that the greatest gift you can give to the world is not hiding who you are, but sharing who you are with courage and joy.